give you a little bit of additional context in terms of our goals. So my team and I have a much longer sort of list of targets for the year. Things like budget targets, things like staff recruitment goals, right? We've cut that list down. Then there's a list of goals for your school directors. School directors actually have some goals in addition to yours. They have goals around the way our school site administrators feel about our program, the way that our faculty advisors feel about our program, the way that you feel about training and management. Cut that list down. Here's what's important to you. And I do think, just from like a management standpoint, it is important to focus people. So I don't want to overwhelm you with like a bajillion numbers. Like, this is the bread and butter. And actually, if you looked at the sheet, there are some goals that you personally are accountable for, and some that you are not. So I would say, like, the cultural goals, we're all personally accountable for. The ops goal, you're personally accountable for, right? In a way that CMAs, can you help to meet that goal? Sure. But are you personally accountable for that operations goal in the same way that the ops team is? No. So it's like, if I were you, I'd be looking, okay, there are like probably 6 things that at the end of the day, right? So our student achievement goals, probably 7. Student achievement, core member effectiveness, culture, and then your position-specific measures of success. Those are the things that you are personally accountable for over the 5 weeks. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes?
Are these the same from year to year, or are these, you know, because we're comparing them to last year, so I'm just curious if it's the same goal.
Yep, I'm going to answer that question in just a sec. Yep. Okay. On your green sheet, and it'll probably be referred to that from here to eternity. I'll probably just start calling it the green sheet. There are also a few other goals that I haven't put up on the slide. Things like ISAC goals. You know, the ways that core members feel about ISACs. The reason why those are there is because we know that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, the way they feel about the ISAC, the way they perceive the ISAC actually has huge impact on student achievement and whether or not they feel that the culture of Institute is focused on student achievement. So my team and I spend a lot of time wrestling with like, what's important, what's not, what should we measure, what's not, because, for example, I would want to know in the second week of Institute how different school teams, how different core members at different schools are feeling about the ISAC. In fact, we're going to ask them. And I'm going to want to see what's going on there. And if one school's really low, we got to figure something out. Because that is going to have a ripple effect, I guarantee, on the student achievement period that they achieve, as well as the perception of whether or not Institute is focused on student achievement, which I would trace back to whether or not they can actually be good teachers. What you don't also see listed on this slide, but you do see listed on your green sheet, is the way that we measure them in the interim. I mean, just very concretely. We actually do give weekly surveys to our core members. Operations team is taking data on all different types of targets, because they know in order for our core members to feel like operations is running smoothly and efficiently, they probably need to know how long is the lunch line, how long is the breakfast line, how long is it taking to print something in the print room. Like that's their interim data. They take a lot of interim data, and they're going to say, core members have stood in the line at the copy center for 2 hours. That would never happen. But, boy, that's probably going to bring us down. We need to focus in. Right? So, for the sake of room on the slide, I did put some interim measures there, but they're there. Like, just very transparent. Okay. I want to just highlight for you kind of where we've come from. And you have this in front of you in your PowerPoint deck. And also clarify for you kind of what you're looking at. So, I'm excited to say, I'm a discover. I feel like in years past, certainly when I was a core member, when I was a CMA in 2003, SC in 2006, there's kind of this lore around Institute. Oh, Institute, everybody hates it. Oh my God, it's like going through the trenches. I don't actually think that's an accurate story anymore. That's not how core members, there are some degrees of that, and part of it is because it's part of our culture. I made it, it's like, I made it to the moon, I made it through Institute. And part of that, I'm kind of like, but you know what? When we go to Regents now, we had so many first-year teachers applying to work at Institute. I'm like, you realize there's only like 12 possible positions for first years at Institute, right? Like that's just not the case anymore. Everyone's like, I love Institute. Yeah, sorry. Are there outliers? Absolutely. But I'm saying, like, in this big, I used to 2 years ago do this session, and I used to say, we have a real problem. We have a real problem with Institute culture that we have to solve. And now I'm actually like, we've made a lot of progress. We've made a lot of progress that I'm actually afraid of backtracking on. That's actually now the thing we need to make sure we're not doing. We need to make sure we're maintaining and not backtracking. So I just want to show you sort of from 2007 to 2008 what this looked like. Our student achievement increased by 12%. I will say that that does need to improve. The things that need to improve are student achievement and core member effectiveness. Those things do need to improve, okay? So our student achievement results were significant. You saw them in the previous page. They increased by 12%, but we wanted to that 100%. Our core member effectiveness data remains steady. You saw that we were at 76% last year. Our goal is 80. I think this year we can get to 80. I will say though that last year I think we scored our core members more accurately than we ever have before. And I think that previous we had overinflated talent data, where we actually say core members are coming out like so red. It wasn't quite as accurate. So after I was like, this 76, I think is right. We didn't meet our goal. I think it's accurate. And now we can do something about this. So let's really look at what the results were. And I'll tell you, planning and classroom management are what we need to knock out the park this summer. Classroom management was a problem last summer. And we really need to work on it. So what you're looking at here, this met student achievement goals, this is really confusing because it's my shorthand. Core members answer a question that says, I met my student achievement goals. That's not actually meeting the student achievement goals. The student achievement goal is on the first line on the green page. That's the survey question, I met my student achievement goals. And I'm just sort of showing you a smattering of data that shows like pretty significant progress. We know that more core members than 50, what it shows here, actually did meet their student achievement goals. But that's how they answer the question. If you look at so I feel like I'm part of a welcoming environment based on my background, significant increase for 2007. This is for our institute only. This is Atlanta only data. I feel like culture is focused on student achievement. I feel a sense of partnership. School logistics, efficient. University, do not have university logistics, but that also increased. I apologize, that's not up there. ISAT assessment's huge. Unit plans, my CS, my CMA. CSs and CMAs have always been very strong, thank goodness. They remain strong and they did increase a little bit. So just to show you sort of where we've come, but also just say like success is possible. You know, I think right, we just talked about a goal has to be meaningful and we have to feel like it's feasible. It is. I mean, we superseded our goals last year in the Atlanta Institute. Just blew them out of the water. So success is possible. And I think the first step is basically doing what we're doing here, which is like, okay, what are the goals? What's at play when we talk about the goals? What am I specifically, basically what we're doing right here, I think is why we were so successful and continue to talk about it. Let's look at a couple of other things. So one thing that I think we can feel proud of, but still work on, is how core members from different ethnic groups are perceiving the usefulness of Institute. And I would look at the African American and white core members for two reasons. One, they're the biggest subgroups, and two, there's typically the biggest divergence between those two groups. And I will say that the fact that our welcoming environment measure is 78 to 82, which is the pink line last year, actually got a lot of people's attention because that has never happened before. It is typically 25 to 30 points difference. So we did something really right, and this is Atlanta specific. We need to duplicate it. I'm kind of scared. But I'm telling you, it's not all that. I do because I'm like, wow, to have achieved that is really significant. So I must have spent a lot of time talking about how we did that last year to make sure that we can do it again. You'll see that there are still some differences across subgroups and across those two in particular. This, to me, is a place that we need to focus, always. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Talk specifically about our cultural measures, specifically about our welcoming environment measures. It's actually not a mystery to us what drives those things. A few years ago it was. It's really not. We know how to get to these things. There is some skill, though, we have to build in ourselves to get there. So that's what